Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday, and thank you for joining me with today for our Prayer with Friday. We do not have any special guests coming on, so I have decided to do an open mic, and this is open to men or women or anybody that would like to join me on the show this morning, and that will be in the 8 o'clock hour. So let's start off with our Kids Corner with our inspirational video of the day.
Samuel, who always wanted everything instantly. One day at school, the principal announced a race. Samuel was excited, but wanted to win without effort. Samuel saw a girl named Lily practicing every day with determination and patience. Lily noticed Samuel watching and gave him some friendly advice about patience and practice. Inspired by Lily, Samuel decided to practice every day, learning patience along the way. On the day of the race, Samuel felt ready and confident thanks to his practice and patience. Samuel and Lily ran side by side, their hard work paying off as they led the race. Samuel realized that patience and practice helped him succeed, and he was grateful for Lily's advice. Samuel learned that patience wins the race and hard work always pays off.
Yeah, patience and practice, right? I mean, that's kind of like what I do on the show every day, trust me. It's a lot of patience and practice. And the definitions of patience is long suffering. You know, it's always been a word that I am very aware of since I learned the definition of that word, just to not take it for granted. A lot of people, oh, you just need to be patient. Well, the only way to learn patience is to actually go through different trials or situations where you can learn how to have it. It's not just a mood swing, is what I'm trying to say. It is something that is developed over time. And if you ask for it and then all these things start happening to you, you're like, well, what's going on? Why are these? Because these different trials, or as like I like to call them life lessons, are there to teach you long suffering, which is the definition of patience. So you need to learn how to suffer long if you want patience. So if somebody is, going through that, you know, life lesson right now, and you just feel like nobody loves me, life is beating up on me, it's not that anybody's beating up on you. The only way to learn long suffering is to actually experience it and understand what it is, right? And so Patty Cake says, Grand Rising, Founder Grand Rising to you too. And she says, have a black-tastic day. That is one of her key phrases. I love that. Black-tastic. And so with that, we're going to go into honoring God with our bodies. And so, God, please guard our thoughts, guard our mind. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears. Help me to listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, protect my mouth and help me to speak life. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone and especially to those who belong to to our family in the faith. God, please protect my reproductive organs. Help me to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please help me to walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. So I try to read that every morning just to set our hearts right for the day, because prayer shouldn't just be when we need something. It should be always, right? Always. Just to be prepared is one of those things. If you don't have to, if you stay ready, you'll be ready, right? I heard that from someone. If you stay ready, you'll always be ready, and you won't be worried about it. And Jayla, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right. Jayla Hand JCN says, hi, good morning, and hi to you as well. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube. So, one of the topics that I wanted to get into, because as you guys know, I do a lot of different research and studying. It's like I'm in the car and I'm listening to the radio and I'm listening to podcasts and just trying to get information for the next day. Trust me, on the weekends I try not to listen to anything. I watch a lot of sports and relax. But this was something that came up that I was going through my ex account, and I was like, wow, that's actually not horrible. And it's one of those things where when you don't hear it in the mainstream media, you're wondering like, why aren't you guys talking about this? But apparently, U.S. filings for jobless benefits fall to the lowest level since mid 2022. So that means that there are fewer people actually applying for unemployment benefits, and that's a good thing, right? Because we are at, unfortunately, some stagflation, as they like to call it, or in a recession. And we've been in a recession for a long time. And I'm really hoping that we can figure out where we need to be economically. I know that the president's trying to do different deals, and there are different countries trying to, you know, deal with us, right? And there has to be some balance. It cannot be all one sided, because unfortunately, we seem to be the country that everybody just wants to overtake, but at the same time, they don't want to destroy it because they want to benefit from it. Like it's a very abusive relationship, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So the Washington AP, U.S. applications for unemployment benefits fell to their lowest level in more than 3 years, and last week potentially complicating the Federal Reserve's upcoming decision in interest rates, right? Because there's been that talk of, hey, we need to lower the interest rate so we can get more loans, so we can get more money circulating out there and all this. Well, if there are more people working, okay, but do we know if they're working? Because sometimes with these jobs numbers, that's not the numbers that aren't talked about are the people who may have given up on looking for work, right? And so sometimes we don't see those numbers, and you just assume that, okay, well, maybe they went back to work. Okay. Right. And you can only really do those numbers after the month is over. So for whatever happened in November, let's say, we really wouldn't know all the numbers until like January, true numbers, right? Because if they try to do it in December, there might be some, I won't call them hiccups, but like, oh, we found something over here. So they usually try to give themselves at least 45 days. That's just standard. So, the number of Americans applying for jobless benefits for the week ending in November 29th fell to 191,000 from the previous week of 218,000. The Labor Department reported Thursday, so yesterday, right? That's the lowest level since September 4th, 2022, when claims came in at 189,000. Analysts surveyed by the data provider FactSet had forecast initial claims of 221,000. So they thought it would be higher. Thank goodness it was lower. But like I said, does that include people who may have just stopped looking for work? It doesn't necessarily mean they're employed because they didn't file for unemployment benefits. Now, applications for unemployment aid are viewed as a proxy for layoffs and are close to a real time indicator of the health in the job market. The job cuts announced recently by large companies such as UPS, General Motors, Amazon, and Verizon typically take weeks or months to fully implement and may not be reflected in Thursday's data. So, again, like I said, the numbers might actually change based on some of the data that's received later on. So I just wanted to go down to the end. So the total number of Americans filing for jobless benefits for the previous week ending in November 22 dipped by 4,000 to 1.94 million, the government said. And so it's a lot of it's still going to be kind of up in the air because remember we had the government shutdown. So there were people that weren't working or even were working, they weren't receiving any money. And then we had people that lost their jobs during that government shutdown. So it's, I don't think they're going to be able to fully recover from the fallout of that and then catching up to the job numbers till about early February. That's just my guesstimate on it. But I wanted to bring you guys that because hey, let's stay hopeful, right? And then next, I wanted to check out Ellen Omar. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk about what's been going on with her, what's happened. A lot of people have been upset about what's happened. But when I thought about it, because my husband and I were talking about it, and he made a good point. He was saying, it's kind of sad to blame an entire community on one person or even a small set of people. Everybody can't be bad. And I'm like, okay, I'll give some grace on that, right? Because that's like saying all Americans are horrible, and all Americans are not horrible. Those are just facts, right? You can't just broad brush it. But I think the sad part, and this is the sad part, is that there were a few people in the community that make the entire community look bad. On top of that, it has really exposed the Somalian community and made it, and we're now looking at a community that over 50% of their livable, how they are able to survive in the United States is based on welfare. I mean, that's not cool. Like, if maybe like 10% of your community was on welfare, everybody would be able to understand it only because of the whole refugee situation, right? That would make sense. It's like, okay. But over 50% of your community, and maybe even upwards to 80% of your community is on welfare. That's not boding well with the American people, right? And they're looking at these NGOs and different social programs that were taken advantage of, particularly in that community. You know what I'm saying? So I get how people come to the conclusion it's everybody, let's get everybody out of here, right? When there may be good people amongst those in their community. So I get it, and I'll definitely want to say I'm one of the people. I want everybody up off the soil, but I don't want just Somalians off the soil. I want everybody here illegally, everybody here taking advantage of the government, everybody here that doesn't really want to be an American, everybody that wants to align themselves with Sharia law that runs contrary to the Constitution. Like, I am an equal opportunity, get off the soil if you are not America first person. That's just me, right? I don't want you here if you do not want to truly be here and be an American. If you can't put American before wherever you came from or who you are, what are we doing? Really, truly, what are we doing? Now, Uncle Coolwater get his comment. He says, "Great in theory, but at this point, we don't give a darn." I'm not going to say that word. Everybody's got to go. Good morning, and good morning to you. And like I said, that's why I have the stance. Like, everybody's got to come up off the soil. I'm not saying that there aren't good people, right? I'm not going to say, okay, everybody's a criminal that's doing it. I'm not going to say that they're all criminals, but I am saying it's time to roll out. It's time to roll out, and it's time for Americans to really take our country back. But again, like I've been saying for a long time, in my opinion, they want us to be like the Hunger Games and fighting against one another, as opposed to really putting the responsibility where it lies in the people that we put in office. And saying, hey, you're writing these policies, you're protecting some people, you're allowing some of these things over here, but you're really not protecting the overarching masses of the American public. And it's got to stop. And Official Ghoster says good morning, says hi. Hi to you too. Thank you so much for joining us here. So I asked Grok, I said, did Ilhan Omar write legislation for Feeding Our Future? Right? Because a lot of people have heard about Feeding Our Future. I'm doing well, Ghoster. I'm glad you're doing okay. So it says, no, Ilhan Omar did not write legislation specifically for Feeding Our Future, the now defunct Minnesota nonprofit at the center of the $250 million federal nutrition fraud scandal during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, she did introduce and led bipartisan legislation in 2020 that significantly expanded flexibility in the USDA's child nutrition programs, including the Summer Food Service Program and Child and Adult Care Food Program, which enabled nonprofits like Feeding Our Future to access and distribute federal funds for meals to children. This bill, known as the Meals Act, more efficient and effective local school food assistance during COVID-19, was incorporated into broader COVID-19 relief packages, such as the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and fed an estimated 30 million children nationwide by relaxing traditional requirements like site monitoring and meal distribution rules that had previously favored public schools. So here's the thing. Oh, and thank you so much for subscribing, official. Appreciate that. And Uncle Coldwater, thank you for reposting the stream. So they she was like, okay, let's put something in place to help people during the pandemic. I'm just paraphrasing, right? But as you can see, they relaxed traditional requirements that were required by public schools because these NGOs, they weren't schools, right? So they didn't have children coming through their facility every single day. It was just more like, hey, we have hungry people in our area. Some may not be going to school right now, right? Because everybody was at home. So it was like, okay, well, we're going to create meals, and people that would normally have their kids who got free lunch or whatever, or reduced lunch, we're going to provide food for them. I'm just paraphrasing because that was the intent, right? Now, the Meals Act purpose and impact. Introduced by Omar in March of 2020, the bill aimed to address school closures by allowing community organizers, faith-based groups, and nonprofits to reimburse meal costs at higher rates with fewer restrictions. Now, higher rates, fewer restrictions. That spells fraud. That spells that people could definitely game the system, right? With those two things right there. So this was intended to combat child hunger, but inadvertently created vulnerabilities exploited by fraudsters. Feeding Our Future, which claimed to sponsor sites serving millions of meals, approximately 125 million phantom meals. Let me say that one more time. 125 million phantom meals. So that means the meals, nothing was ever done, and it was just paperwork. So nobody ever got the food. It was never distributed. But they claimed to have served these phantom meals, right? So received about 250 million in reimbursements under these relaxed rules before the FBI raided its offices in January 2022. Prosecutors have charged over 75 people, mostly from Minnesota's Somali community, in what the DOJ calls the largest welfare fraud case in U.S. history, involving money laundering for luxury goods, real estate, and vehicles. Now, let's get one thing clear. When Somalis first came here in the 1990s, there was like a whole remittance fraud thing. And it happened right before it was like maybe like late 90s, early 2000s. They got here in the 90s. So they had that situation. And then you just didn't really hear about any fraud going on. You just didn't hear about the Somali community at all. And then COVID has popped off, and it was just like, whoa, what happened? They're not the only people that committed fraud, though. I just want to let you know a lot of the people, there's PPP loans out there, and they're still catching up to those people till this day that committed fraud, drawing money from the federal government. They didn't have businesses. They were out there buying houses and cars. What are you doing? And getting caught. So it wasn't just the Somali community. Okay, during that time of COVID, it was like a free for all, and people were really doing things that were fraudulent. Now, here's Omar's role and connections. While that legislation, not tailored to Feeding Our Future, the nonprofit benefited directly from it. So Omar promoted child nutrition programs and videos and events, where she was at the Safari restaurant, owned by a convicted fraudster who funneled 16 million through the scheme. She received 7,400 in campaign donations from three individuals later charged in the case from Safari and related entities, which her office donated to local food shelves in 2022 upon learning of the allegations. Former campaign staffers and allies like Goody Hashi, convicted of stealing 5 million, also had ties to the fraud. Omar was Omar has condemned the scheme as reprehensible and heinous, leading to a 2022 letter to the USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack demanding stronger safeguards against future fraud. So she actually found out about the fraud, got money, apparently donated it somewhere else, and then wrote a letter saying, hey, you've got to fix this, right? You've got to fix these vulnerabilities once you learned about it, right? But like I said, it here when you look at it, it was like, wait a minute, you're going to do milk costs at a higher rate and fewer restrictions. Like I said, anybody, and maybe this isn't, I don't know, legislatures, y'all, you need to do better. I don't even know what to say. You need to do better. Higher costs, lower restrictions. There's always going to be some level of fraud, and you guys need to do better at really auditing where the money goes, why it's going there, and what it's being used for. This is, you can't say we're in charge of the purse, but then not having a mechanism of an auditing trail and compliance. Okay. You can't have that and be like, oops, I guess this happened. It's like, no, these things should be baked into that legislation. Okay. Just a tip from somebody who's a paralegal. Just a tip. You should always have in there, if you take advantage of the system, and usually it's like standard verbiage, and I'm sure they had it in there, but because the restrictions were lower, people didn't care. It's like, by the time you catch me, most of this money is going to be laundered somewhere else anyway. I'll take the L because it's technically white collar crime, right? People may go to jail for 3 or 4 years. I heard somebody getting 17 years, less than 20 years. I'm sure they'll get time off for good behavior. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going, it's not life in prison. That's all I'm saying. They're not confiscating all of your material possessions and leaving you destitute. The money's been taken and laundered. What about clawing back the money? Did that happen? Those are the questions that I have. $250 million, like, where did it go? And where is it? Where did it go? Those are basic questions, right? And so again, she pointed this out. And federal investigations, including ongoing DOJ probes, have not accused Omar of involvement in the fraud. She attributes the scandal to rushed COVID-era programs lacking guardrails, which you wrote legislation, but she's not wrong. A view echoed by watchdogs like the Heritage Foundation. So she agreed with the Heritage Foundation. Oh my gosh, is the world going to fall apart? Because she can't stand the Heritage Foundation, I'm sure, with Agenda 2025. But they agreed on something. Just saying. Which called the evidence against defendants overwhelming, but noted systemic failures in state oversight, right? Minnesota Department of Education's delays in suspending Feeding Our Future despite red flags. Critics, including House Oversight Chair James Comer, have scrutinized her ties, demanding documents on why Democratic-led regulators hesitated on Somali community allegations. So there's a whole thing going on with their community. And this is why the spotlight is there. We look, spotlight. It's happening. Right? So I wanted a link to this letter. Just trying to do this in real time, guys. Let me make sure you can see it. I usually have it about 175 because I can see everything fine because I'm here. You guys may not be able to do that. Uh-oh. I don't think. Did it click out on my news? Whoops. Okay, here we go. So this is on Ilhan Omar's website. And this is the letter. Now, this was done in February of 2022. Now, mind you, Biden's in office. Okay. So Ilhan Omar wrote a letter to the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, calling for information regarding the reports of fraudulent misuse of federal funding by a nonprofit organization intended to help feed the most vulnerable in her district. The nonprofit reportedly stole and laundered over $200 million in federal funds from the USDA for personal benefits instead of feeding children. The letter calls for information regarding what steps USDA will take to root out any possible future fraudulent use of federal funds and what actions are needed to safeguard children nutrition programs. And I guess here's just a little small summary of what she said. I write you today to express my deep concern and disappointment regarding the reports of fraudulent misuse of federal funding meant to feed hungry children, wrote Representative Omar. I'm appalled to learn of such heinous acts and the theft of resources strictly meant for our most vulnerable populations. I condemn such actions and I am grateful for the work being done by multiple local and federal government agencies to uncover these repulsive, fraudulent actions, and I am eager to know what steps are being taken to protect these critical resources going forward. Now, obviously, after this, you've got, the indictments that came, the people that have been brought up on charges for this after this. But again, this happened during Biden. So she wasn't being impartial or partisan. She said what it was. She wrote this on February 22nd, and she meant, what she said. But, in hindsight, a lot of people really took advantage of what was going on with COVID because it was such an interesting time in our nation's history. Because again, we have all this technology and they're like, stay in the house. Stay in the house. You're going to die if you go outside. Well, what? You don't see any dead people laying out in the street. It definitely doesn't look like The Walking Dead when you're driving down the road. I'm just saying, it did not look like the apocalypse. But during that time, wasn't it interesting when we did go back outside that they had the little 6 feet stickers on the floor? You can't get those in 2 weeks. I'm just saying, because it was like 2 weeks till the spread is over. Okay. So all of this was very planned, is very calculated. But they had to have us in the house to set up and prop up whatever they're doing, and they're still continuing with it now. Now, I am grateful that she was at least at the spearhead of, hey, look into this, because after this letter, as we know, they did start looking into, and they have, indicted people. But where's the money? $250 million is a lot of money. Where did it all go? Those are the questions. Now, if you got $250 million spread out, but, across a whole bunch of people, houses, cars, again, they're talking about people getting $5 million, $60 million. That doesn't equate to over $200 million in one area. That's the bigger question. And I'm really hoping that they get to the bottom of this, because it's a lot of money. A lot of money. So I have a video that really summarizes this scandal. We'll call it a scandal. This scandal really well. So let's take a look.
Dollar welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota was enabled by DEI. Let me explain. Between 2020 and now, federal prosecutors say that more than $1 billion was stolen from Minnesota's social service programs and funneled to fraudulent nonprofits like Feeding Our Future. These organizations claim services for tens of thousands of children who didn't exist. Instead, taxpayer dollars went to funding luxury houses, high-end cars, jewelry, overseas real estate projects, and worst of all, Al-Shabaab, an Islamist terrorist group in Somalia. Now, new reporting shows that the Minnesota Department of Education officials noticed red flags early. They questioned invoices that made no mathematical sense. They noticed new feeding centers were registered in strip malls that were basically empty. They saw providers claiming to serve more meals than there were children living in entire zip codes. And every time they tried to investigate, they were hit with the same accusation. If you expose this, it's racist. That's because Feeding Our Future was run by American citizens of Somali heritage. When the state began scrutinizing their applications, the organization filed a discrimination complaint with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and later sued the Department of Education, accusing it of racial bias and discrimination. Feeding Our Future weaponized DEI by telling the Minnesota Department of Education that failing to promptly approve new applicants from minority-owned businesses would result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be sprawled across the news. In the post-George Floyd climate, that threat carried enormous political power. So agencies backed off, approvals kept flowing, and the fraud exploded. Most of the people charged in this fraud are a tiny fraction of Minnesota's Somali community, which is now stuck with the stigma created by a small group of offenders and a state government too scared to enforce basic rules. Minnesota is now shutting down programs, launching audits, and trying to rebuild oversight that should never have collapsed in the first place. What happened wasn't just fraud. It was fraud that thrived because people put the desire to prop up diversity, equity, and inclusion over reality. And in the end, the taxpayers and residents of Minnesota are the real losers.
Yeah. So thank you, the Free Press, and they are on TikTok, and I will definitely make sure to add their link. And Uncle Coolwater says immigrants getting caught for doing illegal criminal activities and get caught and sent to prison where our tax dollars have to house them is like getting paid and taken care of for doing the crime. Deport them ASAP. Look, I totally agree and understand it should be immediate deportation. You were found guilty, and your sentence is you have to be removed from the United States. We're not going to continue to give you 3 hots and a cot, as they say. But just looking at that video and listening to what she said, I was like, interesting how they used the race card, right? When they were coming under scrutiny. How are you dealing in race? Huh? How are you dealing in race? You're not a race of people. You're ethnically from Somalia. That's what you are. You're not black. Okay? You're not black. Like, and when I was sitting here listening to them, I'm like, wait a minute, black people, we don't even go in that hard and benefit. I'm just saying. When was the last time black people went in that hard? We benefited. Oh, we got the Civil Rights Voting Act of 1965. That was it. That was the last time we went in hard. But we didn't do it fraudulently. Okay. LBJ basically convinced Martin Luther King, okay, to convince black people that he was going to help us. Right? So Martin Luther King went out and did his thing, and he got the people, and he got them energized. And people are still voting Democrat till this day based on that. Just saying. It happened. Okay? But we didn't run around committing fraudulent acts to get us to a better place in this country. And it's sad when people from other countries come over here and do that. I think that's what's got people mostly upset. It's like you come over here and we have extended out a hand of compassion and grace to you. And then you turn around and basically use our laws against us. I'm going to say it fairly. Use our laws against us. But when they brought up the DEI part, I was like, that's an angle I didn't even look at. That they were playing the race card and actually filed a lawsuit like, how dare you, look into us. When again, the restrictions were low. And the prices that they could charge were high. Yeah. Somalians are known for being pirates, allegedly. And I just call it piracy on land. You're doing what you are naturally do in your own country. You steal. You don't work for it, you steal. And I'm not saying that's for every Somalian, but for the majority of your country, like that's how y'all get down. That's what you're known for. That's the reputation that precedes you. Anybody going on vacation in Somalia? Bueller? I'm just like, look, like nobody's going over there to just like even check you all out to be like, hey, are you okay? Everybody's like, nope, not going. It's just very telling. That's all I'm saying. It's very, very telling. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some more news, and it's again our Prayer with Friday. So if you would like to join me here on the show, it's open mic at the 8:00 hour. Please let me know, and I will send you a link. I can be reached at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com or send me a direct message on X. And we'll see you guys on the other side.
The browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bytes can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments, so it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source, because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question: do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And so I wanted to just wrap up our last segment with this. Remember back in June, the Supreme Court pauses district court order preventing immigrants from being deported to third-party countries. So I think you guys remember there was that whole back and forth, like you can't just deport people to a country that's not their home country. It's interesting because when you were trying to send people back to their home country, the country that they were supposed to go back to was fighting, saying, we don't want them. So what are we supposed to do? We're not keeping them, right? So a lot of people have been sent to El Salvador. So there was a smaller court, not the Supreme Court, but a smaller court was like, you can't do that, President Trump. And I was like, kind of, yeah, you can. So at that time, the Supreme Court, and this was the Monday back in June, allowed the Trump administration, at least for now, to move forward with deporting immigrants to countries not specifically identified in their removal orders. In a brief undersigned order, the justices paused a ruling by a federal judge in Massachusetts that temporarily prohibited the government from sending immigrants to third-party countries without first taking a series of steps to ensure that immigrants would not face torture there. Not our problem. You shouldn't have come here. Your other countries don't even want you back. And we're not taking care of you anymore. That's the problem. That is the biggest problem that I see. And it's the dispute stems from guidance issued by the Department of Homeland Security earlier this year in response to an executive order signed by President Donald Trump that instructed DHS to take all appropriate actions to remove non-citizens who are still in the United States, even though an immigration judge issued an order for their deportation. It is crazy how there were judges that were intervening after the fact. So a judge is like, this person needs to be deported. And the other judge is like, you can't send them away. What? What? Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? And this is where we as the American people, we got to stand up against this nonsense because it is crazy. Crazy. All right, we're going to get into our next video. This one I came up across. It was actually on Instagram. Very interesting video. Now, this gentleman, when you hear him talk, you're going to be like, did you come to the future and then go back to make this video to tell us like what to look out for? Like it's a trip. So I'm going to play it for you guys.
Modified. Tomato, potato, asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, almost all the basics are purposely. And as you know, they have the Terminator seed now too.
Yes.
Because the farmers can't plant seeds, you can't plant seeds now unless you buy it from the government. They come up one season and they're gone, which means they're already modified. Watermelons down here with seedless watermelon. I wouldn't even touch a watermelon with no seeds out. But if you breathe, what are you going to breathe? You can't call it air anymore. We breathe something that is overtaxing our body with toxins that we're trying to get through the day on. We have chemical sprays being sprayed over 245 major cities in the United States, and all over our planet now is an electronic metal smog. And I can tell you why that's done too. We have these Gwen towers that they have erected, which are also perpetuating that continuous thing. We have HAART programs, High Frequency Active Aurora Research Project. We have ELATA over in Russia, Electrified Atmospheric Discharge. We have ISACAP, European Scatter Radar manipulation. All these things are broadcasting billions, I didn't say millions, combined billions of watts of amperage of ionic electrified air particles into the air. We are breathing now titanium, aluminum, barium, non-human T cells, all kind of other things is being sprayed from ships that aren't supposed to be there. So you have metal particulation in your system. You have electrified air, which is poisonous in your system. And then whatever else that the smokestacks and the exhaust from cars are there too. Unless you can clean that out, your body's not only going to age very quickly, the cells are going to deteriorate, and you're not going to function on the heights you should be. That's why most people are running around I call them comatose, dumbed down, brainwashed, vaccinated, inoculated, and encrypted. Any two of which make you unusable to a society that's trying to develop.
Heard those names before. But encrypted is
chipped. You go to the wrong, did you say this on TV? Let's put it away. Wrong lab that's making a prosthetic device, whether it be from your teeth or leg, they probably put a chip in. Unless you're very careful. The food you eat is probably encrypted. If you have any vaccinated, you are encrypted. If you're in armed services, you're encrypted. They're trying to control a whole populace, and this is the best way to do it. Anytime anybody invades underneath your skin, 9 times out of 10 now you're encrypted. If you're not encrypted, you're probably mind controlled. There's so much going on now, Doc. I sound like I am psychotic. I am not. And I'll never say I'm crazy. I'm neurotic. My neurosis grows with the psychotic behavior of people and the apathy of people, the ennui of people who don't seem to understand what's going on. That's frightening to me. Because we're a planet trying to come under control. We're a populace, black and white.
Okay, he said a lot in there. And don't worry, I will make sure that I link that video because you're probably going to have to watch it a couple of times just to catch a lot of the things he was saying, like the seeds. We do have seedless watermelon, but I like what he was saying, and I've really tried to be more cognizant of that, is buying watermelons that have seeds in them and going to get my watermelon from a farmer's market, right? As opposed to going to the grocery store because there is so much modified food, right? It's all coming out, the bioengineered food, but he was talking about more. And when he talked about things being injected under our skin through vaccines, okay, and that was a big thing Why were they pushing so hard for everybody to get this mRNA vaccine? And a lot of people say, well, they just needed to inoculate everybody. No, I had already gotten COVID, got over it naturally, right? My husband and I. We may get sick maybe once a year now. Maybe. I've gone through the whole year and I felt bad maybe a day during the summertime when we were traveling. That was it. Nothing else. I have not been sick. And when I'm talking about, like on your butt, in the bed, fever, you got to take something. No, not since 2021. Okay. And I got COVID in 2020. And that year I got sick like twice after I got COVID. That was it. And then after that, maybe once a year. Like I said, this year, like hardly anything. Again, I did not get inoculated, but a lot of people that did, they got sick, they died, they're injured. They're having to backpedal and say what it caused or what it didn't cause. But again, like I said, I'm going to leave that video for you guys because he said a lot in that video in a short amount of time. And I was blown away. I was like, I got to share this with the audience. And Sincerely Lawless, thank you so much for reposting the stream. And she says, good morning and happy Friday, founder. Happy Friday to you too. I almost said happy Friday. I'm so used to Dr. C saying happy Friday. It's so cute. I love it. And now the next video we're going to get into, because I really wanted to break down a lot of what's been going on society-wise. And so that's why I played that gentleman's video first. But now let's get into this, because this is something that I'm still learning about, but it ties into some different terms that have been out there in the ether that we've heard, right? That tie into what she's talking about.
Heard political experts over and over refer to the fact that what we're witnessing is a color revolution. And they're right. And let me explain why. A color revolution is a communist globalist playbook to take over a country without tanks actually rolling down Main Street. It's how they flipped places like Serbia, Georgia, Ukraine, and they tried to flip a dozen others. The same exact playbook every single time. This is how they do it. 1, they demonize the leader of the people who they actually voted for. 2, they flood the country with chaos like riots, open borders, economic pain. 3, they weaponize the courts, the media, and big tech to finish him off. And 4, they install a puppet who sells the country out to China and the UN. And that's not theory, that's the manual. They opened it on us in the United States the day Donald Trump won in 2016. And here's how they ran it on us step by step. From 2016 to 2020, they gave us the Russia collusion hoax, FBI spying, 2 fake impeachments, Antifa burning cities while CNN called it fiery but mostly peaceful, and the goal was to make you hate the guy you voted for. In 2020, we had 2 a.m. ballot dumps, boarded up windows, 51 intel agents lying about Hunter's laptop, Zuckerberg dropping $400 million to help count votes in Democrat cities. And the goal there was to steal the election while calling you a conspiracy theorist for noticing. From 2021 to 2024, we had Joe Biden opening the border on day 1, 12 million plus illegals, military-age men from China and Venezuela and all over the world, free flights, free hotels, free EBT cards, all on your dime. Cities collapse, crime explodes, schools and hospitals break. The goal, to make Americans feel like strangers in their own country. Then from 2021 to 2025, 91 felony charges, Mar-a-Lago raided, gag orders, mug shots. They didn't want to just beat Trump. They wanted to break him and every future patriot who dares to run. Look at what they did to Charlie Kirk. That is a textbook color revolution. But on November 5th, 2024, the American people looked this Marxist coup dead in the eye and said, not today. 312 electoral votes, popular vote landslide, the biggest Hispanic and Black Republican turnout ever. We pulled off the greatest peaceful counter-revolution in world history. But the deep state isn't done. The same snakes who funded BLM riots, Ukraine coup, and Arab Spring still sit in the FBI, CIA, big tech, and the universities. They'll try again in 2026 or in 2028. but now you know the game. Every time you see another mostly peaceful riot, sudden experts all using the same scripted words, a new crisis 2 weeks before an election, you're watching the Color Revolution playbook live on American soil. Never forget what they tried to do to us. Back mass deportations. If we have no border, we have no country. Protect every America First fighter willing to swing the axe on the swamp. Teach your kids the truth. Communism didn't die in 1991. It just dyed its hair purple and moved to Washington. This is still the United States of America. We are still the home of the brave, and the brave do not bow to color revolutions. Recognize what is happening, stare it in the face, speak out against it, and then we finish taking our country back, one closed border, one drained swamp, and one restored republic at a time. We need to support our president in taking all necessary measures to do just that. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Yeah. So I found her video. She is on X, and I will make sure to link the video in her profile when I repost. But what she was saying is spot on. I mean, all of those things happened and they all occurred. And we all lived through it. But here we are at the precipice. Do we allow it to happen again? Or have we truly learned our lesson? You know, when she was she was like, yeah, the color revolution didn't stop. It just dyed its hair purple and moved to Washington. And that's what we see. I mean, we still have people and members of Congress that are men calling themselves women. We do. We do. They do have those individuals in our Congress that hold political office that are still okay with, you know, men in women's bathrooms. They're still okay with us having open borders. They're still okay with illegal activity. I mean, like I said yesterday, the judge from Minnesota in the $7.2 million fraud case, and it was another medical fraud case. And in their instance, it wasn't food, it was medical services that they said that they provided, but that they didn't provide at all. But they were billing Medicaid saying that they did it. $7.2 million. And the judge said there wasn't enough circumstantial evidence. And Open Your Eyes says, don't forget COVID-19 was a bioweapon and they released it. They did. I actually had a video of Obama talking about it and I never caught it the first time. And then when I listened to it again, I was like, wait a minute, did he just say that? He basically, and I'll paraphrase, he was like, yeah, with COVID-19, we actually, you know, came up with this injection, right, in record time, and we released it on the general public, you know, to have more of an understanding of it, and and like I said, I'm paraphrasing, using the general public as the test subjects. I was like, huh? I have to find a video. I was like, wait, what? Did he just admit? Did he just admit that there was no efficacy done as, right, Dr. Fauci claimed there was done? That's why they had to keep walking it back. Oh, the mask, it'll help you. Oh, no, it won't help you if you touch it. Oh, now you need 6 masks. Remember that conversation? Huh? Well, 6 feet apart. And then finding out, well, we didn't really know. We just guessed. You destroyed people's lives for decades of family businesses that were put together. You destroyed people's lives based on, we'll make stuff up and then later on we'll just apologize for it. This is why people are demanding Fauci be put in prison. This is why people are demanding people like Barack Obama and all the, these other politicians who did this, who bought into this, who had all of us trying to buy into it. This is why they want the tribunals. This is why people want Nuremberg 2.0 with COVID-19. That's why. Yeah. And Open Your Eyes says it was a massive psyop. Absolutely. Now, what's the next one? I don't think it is the Somalis. I really think the next massive psyop, and this is just my opinion, I think they're going to use the soldiers that were unfortunately shot, the National Guardsmen over the holiday. I really think they're going to use that as this whole illegal orders situation. I'm not going to get too much into it, but there's the uh, the drug boats that have been bombed in the water right now. There's a whole conversation about that, saying that may have been illegal orders. That's my opinion. I really think right now they're trying to destabilize our military and create confusion on our soil, like the young lady was saying in her video, the whole color revolution thing. But I think the next really big psyop is going to be our military, and they're using it. And Open Your Eyes says CIA, MK Ultra mind control technology. Yeah. And that's what the gentleman was talking about in the video. And that video is probably from the 80s, maybe, right? 80s or 90s at least. So it's one of those things, they don't use different patterns. They use the same patterns. It just might be a different subject, right? Same pattern, different subject. But that led me to really asking some questions, and I wanted to learn more about just words that are being used, why they're being used. Do we understand why terms are being propped up? And so I wanted to start with Nazism and fascism, right? And I said, can you define them? Now, fascism is a far right authoritarian, ultra, such a long word, ultra nationalist political ideology that emerged in the early 20th century Europe, most famously under Benito Mussolini in Italy between 1922 and 1943. Its core features include extreme nationalism and the glorification of the nation state, authoritarian one party dictatorship that suppresses opposition, rejection of both liberalism and democracy, and socialism, communism. So they reject both of those terms under fascism. Okay. A strong charismatic leader, the deuce or leader principle, materialism, and the willingness to use violence, corporatist economic model, the state coordinates capital labor and but private property remains. Okay. Anti-egalitarian ideology, emphasis on hierarchy, discipline, and the will to power. Mass mobilization through propaganda, youth movements, and spectacle. Often, but not always, racist or exclusionary, though racism is not strictly required. Mussolini's original fascism was primarily Italian centric, expansionist, and anti clerical at first, but not biologically racist until the late 1930s when it aligned with Nazi Germany. And Open Your Eyes says, half of the country has been brainwashed. Notice how strange they act. Yeah, it's been crazy. But a lot of stuff is in our water and our food, and a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know they're not eating real food. And I mean, on top of all that insult to injury, like I've mentioned before, in the state of Washington, they allow human remains to be used as manure to seed to fertilize the crops. Do people know that there are corpses that are being literally decomposed and made into manure to grow vegetables? Yeah, that's happening. Just like the Matrix says, they liquefy the dead to feed it intravenously to the living. I mean, we're here. We're here. Now, Nazism. Nazism is a specific German variant of fascism developed by Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Now, that's interesting, right? Because it's a variant of fascism where fascism doesn't subscribe to socialism and communism. but Adolf Hitler did. So it shares almost the features of generic fascism, but has several distinctive elements that make it both a subset of fascism and a more extreme version. So it gives a comparison of Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. It says ultranationalism under Mussolini, yes, nation state, and Nazism, yes, but based on racial, Volk, ethnic Germans and Aryans, right? So that's what Hitler was based in, where Mussolini was like, it's a nation state, doesn't matter what your racial ethnicity is. Now, racism, anti Semitism, it was optional or mild. Now, with Hitler, it was central and biological. Aryan master race, Jews as the mortal enemy. So it set that up, the good and bad, right? Oh, and Black Flag, thank you so much for reposting the stream and joining us this morning. And he says, great day, Black Americans. Great day to you too. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, economic policy, corporatist, pragmatic, National Socialist in name, but private property preserved under state direction. Okay. Anti Bolshevik and also anti capitalistic rhetoric. So this is where they split. Okay. Under Mussolini, it was like, okay, pragmatic, corporatist. All right. Under Hitler, it was like, yeah, but you're not going to own anything. We're going to own everything. Okay. Now, leader principle, strong leader cult. Okay. And then on the Nazi side, extreme Führerprinzip, Hitler is infallible. So definitely the same, but this is more to the extreme. Lebensraum, okay, imperialism, sorry, Italian empire. That was his focus, was Italy. Explicit racial conquest for living space in the East. Okay. Eugenics and extermination was rare under Mussolini. Under Hitler, systemic Holocaust, general plan oust, and euthanasia. So they wanted to kill off their enemies. If you weren't Aryan and you were somebody else, they just wanted you out of the picture. Okay, so that was the difference, right? So we're looking at Nazism and we're looking at more so fascism. Now, anti-Christian elements, often anti-clerical. Okay, so under fascism, under Mussolini fascism, right, they were often anti-clerical. And this is interesting. Under the Nazi mindset, where it was mostly socialist, positive Christianity, facade, but long-term pagan, neo-pagan goals. So they pretended to be Christians, but they weren't. What they were really doing was completely paganism, right? Multiple gods. Okay. That's what was going on. So all Nazism is fascism, but not all fascism is Nazism. Okay, and the reason why I had to look this up, because people throw that word around a lot. You're a Nazi. You're this. So I'm like, do you even know what you're saying? Or are you just saying it to be mean? It's not one of those things. Like if we wanted to, I don't know. What's a good mean word, y'all? You're a lot right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could deal with somebody going, you know what? You're just a lot right now. And they'd be like, ooh, but you want to use words like racist and Nazi and all. But are you really looking at what that word means when you say it? Like when somebody uses the N word, hard R, are you really using this in the proper context? Because that word literally means somebody who's unintelligent, who cannot read nor write. That's what that word means. So when you say it and you're saying it in a condemning way, right? Because you're trying to put somebody down, you're trying to put them in a box, you're trying to say, this is what you are. You look really crazy, because if that person's intelligent and can read and write, what are you doing? Why are you using the word out of context? And that's why I wanted to really dig into this and bring this up, because it does tie into the color revolution. Again, in my opinion, they want us like the Hunger Games. They want us fighting with one another. And to me, this is where it starts, with really not understanding the difference. But you're a fascist. Do you even know what that means? Do you know what that means? Is it in proper context? So Nazism equal fascism plus radical racial biological worldview is the Aryan supremacy plus genocidal anti-Semitism plus the context of Laban Schramm. Laban Schramm. I'm sorry, that word is weird. I'll figure out later. And that concept, right? That's Nazism. Okay. Now, Mussolini's original fascism was not inherently racist or anti Semitic. Italy only passed racial laws in 1938 under German pressure. So they got pressure from the Germans to do that. Yeah. And Uncle Coolwater says the misuse of the word racist. Absolutely. Absolutely. And other fascist movements, Franco Spain, Salazar's Portugal, Horthy's Hungary, etc., were authoritarian and nationalist, but lacked the racial biological obsession and genocidal component that defines Nazism. So Nazis wanted people just wiped up off the face of the earth. This is why we have those horrific pictures of dead bodies everywhere in Germany, because they put people in concentration camps, and it kills me. Like these Democrats, there's real concentration camps, man. Just to say that is just so hyperbolic and evil, to say that we have anything like that on our soil without any proof of it. Without any proof of it. Stop that. You know good and well we do not have concentration camps here. And if we do have them, they're not for people who are here on our soil illegally. We might have them set up for, American citizens, right? Like they do in Australia, with those camps that they put people in. That was a test run, by the way. Locking people up that didn't want to get inoculated, or locking people up saying that they were possibly, could infect others. That was a test run. Just saying. And Open Your Eyes says, this is a spiritual battle that started 1,000 years ago. Absolutely. It's always going to be a spiritual battle. Because it's like, are you going to bend the knee? Right? So virtually all historians and political scientists classify Nazism as a form of fascism, but the most extreme and revolutionary one. The term fascism is sometimes used generically to include Nazism, sometimes restricted to the Italian model. When people say fascism today, they usually mean the broader family of interwar far-right authoritarian nationalist movements, of which Nazism is the most radical and infamous member. So it is a very, in my opinion, very egregious statement to call somebody a Nazi or but without understanding the proper context. People just throw it out there. It's like, what are you doing? You look unintelligent when you do that, right? Like, don't do that. So one sentence definition in relation: Nazism is the German radically obsessed genealogical and biological determinist variant of fascism, whereas fascism in its original and generic form is a revolutionary ultra-nationalist dictatorship that does not necessarily require racial ideology. And I think this is why some people are calling Donald Trump a fascist, right? If you're looking at this definition, right? Because he is about being a nationalist, but they throw dictatorship in there. Is he being a dictator? Right? Just saying. So I said, do these ideologies support capitalism and encourage ownership? Now, here's where the breakdown gets real crazy. Neither fascism nor Nazism were straightforward defenders of capitalism as understood in classical liberalism. What? Free markets, laissez faire, individual economic liberty. What? And I think this is why you have the Libertarian Party, because that's their focus, right? Get off my neck, basically, in short. So, however, both strongly supported private ownership of property and the means of production, much more than socialism or communism did, while subordinating the economy entirely to the needs of the nation, race, and the totalitarian state. Okay. So with Nazism and fascism, they didn't want to give people economic freedom the way we see it in the United States. So here's the breakdown, right? So classical liberal capitalism, so private ownership of companies. Let's just look at that. Under the classical liberalism, yes, unrestricted, right? Private ownership. Okay. And even Mussolini was like, yeah, strongly protected. Okay. Nazism, strongly protected. Private ownership of companies. All right. Now, free market competition, yes. Liberalism, all right. Under fascism, no. It's heavily regulated. So that's interesting. You can have private ownership, but it's going to be heavily regulated. Under Hitler, no. Heavily regulated and coordinated. Who does that sound like? Just saying. Regulated, heavily regulated. Profit motive. Yes. Okay. Under the Italian fashion, it was allowed, but profits must serve the nation. Who does that sound like? I'm just saying. If the shoe fits. Okay. Allowed, but profits must serve the Volk and war. So the Volk was the like the Aryans. Okay, because we saw that before. And war. Yeah, you can have profits, but it's got to serve this purpose. It's got to go here. You can't just have it and use it for yourself. Stock market and finance, free. All good with it. Under Mussolini, it remained but controlled. So there was still a hold on it by your government. Under Nazism, it remained but Aryanized and controlled again. Now, who does that sound like they want control? Okay. The shoe fits. Trade unions, independent. All right. Under Mussolini, it's banned, replaced by state-controlled labor front. Who's always trying to control stuff? And who's always trying to make it free? Like, it's interesting, but these sound like Republicans over here. I'm just saying. I would say in hypotheses. Right. I think this is because theory is theory, but theory is played out. Theory is a hypothesis that played out. I think the Republican Party wants to be more here. They're not here, but they want to be more here. Okay. Independent, right? Without all the regulations. Banned, replaced by state-controlled labor front. Who does that sound like? Banned, replaced by German labor front. Who's always talking about having unions? At least the union should be independent so that they can push back if something's wrong. But if they're controlled, they can't push back. Strikes, legal. Okay, so if people wanted to come out and protest and strike under liberalism, you're good. Fascism, that's illegal. Nazism, that's illegal. Have people been able to protest no kings without any issue? Yeah. You can be as crazy as you want to be. It happened. I saw it. They have a whole website dedicated to it all over the country. Is anybody coming after them? Or are they being allowed to do this? I mean, they're literally going up against ICE. There's literally 800 numbers that people can call to be like, hey, report if you see ICE going on here so people can be alerted, which is actually a violation of Title 18, Section 111, you're not supposed to interfere with the work of a federal officer or agent, but they were doing that. Anybody gone to jail for that? Interesting. Now, state intervention in economy, minimal under liberalism. Now, under fascism, it's massive. It's corporatism. Who's always trying to get that corporate private relationship? I know Trump's been making a lot of deals with a lot of these countries to open up countries here, to open up companies here, so there's jobs and there's economic freedom and all these other things. And there's basic regulations, but he's like, yeah, minimal as possible so we can get people working. But under fascism, there's massive control. Under Nazism, it's massive. It's a 4-year plan, autarky, war economy, okay? Working against the people, not for them. The attitude toward big business, positive and efficient, okay. Under fascism, supported if loyal to the regime, punished if not. Who does that sound like? I don't know. With Democrats, you gotta be loyal. They're gonna turn on you. Yeah. Supported if loyal and Aryan expropriated Jews. Okay. So this is where you get Soros. Yeah. So expropriation almost never. Under fascism, rare, only political enemies. Under Nazism, it's widespread against Jews, later against enemies. So who's looking like the Nazis here? Very interesting. Official economic ideology, not here. Slogans, no. Now, under fascism, third way, neither capitalism nor socialism. Okay. Now, we got a whole bunch of people, and they're not saying nothing on the official economic ideology. They don't have one. They just want people to be prosperous, because I'm like, if you're for capitalism, it's like this, you don't even need to have an ideology because you're for it, right? You're for making money and you want people to be free. Kind of it. Under fascism, third way, neither capitalism nor socialism. So what are we doing? Now, under the Nazi ideology, it's national socialism, neither capitalism nor Marxism. Who does that sound like? Does that sound like a Mondani thing? Because he was talking to me. He's a socialist. He is a democratic socialist. Yeah. Slogan. No slogan. Okay. For fascism, everything in the state, nothing outside the state. All right. And then from the Nazi column under Hitler, common good before private good. Who does that sound like? That sounds like a lot of democratic socialists. It does. So again, who are the real Nazis here? Who are we talking about? It's very crazy. So both ideologies fiercely defend private property and entrepreneurship, which I'm grateful for, right? Now, with Mussolini, fascism defends private property. It is the most sacred right of man. Okay, so that's under the fascism mentality. Now, in Hitler, 33 to 34, repeatedly reassured German industrialists that National Socialism would protect private enterprise from Bolshevism. Bolshevism. Ugh. Most big businesses made enormous profits under the Nazis, especially during rearmament and the war, right? Because the businesses, they really weren't worried about economic prosperity of the people. They were more focused on their profits, and they could completely discard the people. Who does that sound like? There are a lot of businesses out there. They don't care what happens to us. Bioengineer food. Hint, hint. not telling you that your food is bioengineered, but they're still making money. They don't care if you get sick or not. Because guess what? They own the pharmaceuticals to give you a shot or take a pill to make you better from the food that you ate that's killing you or giving you cancer. They also own the research facilities that study what's wrong with you. They also own some of the hospitals so they can take care of you. And then they have those doctors on their payroll. See how this is working? It's not looking like classic liberalism. It looks more like we have Nazis everywhere, but they're calling everybody else Nazis. I'm just saying, if the shoe fits. Capitalism was accepted only if it served the nation or race. Economic freedom was not a value in itself. If a capitalist acted against the regime's goals or was Jewish, okay, his property was seized. The economy was directed through cartels, price controls, wage freezes, and forced investment into armaments. Sound familiar? They hated finance capitalism and Jewish plutocracy. Both movements used anti-capitalist rhetoric against banks, stock exchanges, and parasitic Jewish finance. The Nazis carried out the largest exportation of private property in history up to that point. Aryanization of Jewish businesses. Okay. Yeah. Because they blocked them out of their businesses. So in practice, they created state-directed war economies. By the late 1930s, both Italy and Germany had economies that looked more like wartime planned economies than anything resembling free market capitalism. What did we see during COVID? That kind of reminds me of this, right? The Democrats saying, hey, we need to go back to pandemic level spending to save the Affordable Care Act. Why would we do that? Now they're saying, oh, it's going to help people so rates don't go up. First of all, you need to amend the Affordable Care Act so rates don't go up. The lobbying that goes on with these insurance companies and these pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies that own the pharmaceutical companies, by the way, they're in the pockets of every single politician we have. And I'll say allegedly, because maybe there's some that aren't on the dole, but there are a lot of them that are. They're taking that money and they're propping these people up. So who are the real Nazis? I'm just saying, if you're looking at that context of what's really happening. So in short, yes, fascism and Nazism provide private ownership and encouraged entrepreneurship far more than socialism did. Okay. And big industrialists generally thrived under both regimes as long as they were politically loyal and in German Aryan. So when you're not loyal, what happens? They're going to come after you. Now we've seen people going after people on both sides, but the why? Yeah. Like Democrats, y'all have played your hand and you truly look at, you look like the fascists you claim the Republicans are. And now everybody just sees you as a uniparty. So there's really no distinction. You guys are both acting outside of the interest of the people. And liberalism is, in my opinion, what more people on the far right are. They just want freedom. But they look like liberals. They look like libertarians, right? But they rejected capitalism as a system of individual liberty and free market. So this is what they reject. Democratic Party, you guys do reject this. You want to control everything. You want bigger government and smaller business. And you want everything to come through the government to the people. Scary. So instead of subordinating the entire economy to the political and, in Nazism, racial goals of the totalitarian state, they saw themselves as a third way between capitalism and communism. So they weren't full, okay, commie, and they weren't capitalism, but they wanted that sweet spot of fascism and Nazism for control. Yeah. And I will just say that there are people that maybe call themselves Republican that look more like libertarians in practice. And there are Democrats that look more like the fascists and Nazis that they call other people in practice. So with that, we're going to take a quick break and get into some more terminologies. We're also going to get into all sides, because I definitely want to, check out what's going on in the world today and bring you that information. So thanks so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And if anybody, again, wants to join me here on the show for open mic on Prayer with Fridays before we end our live stream, please send me a direct message through X, or you can email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com. Just let me know in the comments if you sent me an email or a direct message, so I'll know to check it and send the link. So I wanted to check out Cloward and Piven after going through Nazism and fascism and just giving that breakdown. So I said, can you explain Cloward and Piven strategy in a short summary? Because sometimes you go on a grok and it's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, I want the cliff notes. So Cloward and Piven strategy is a political theory outlined in 1966 by American sociologist and activist Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven in an article titled "The Weight of the Poor: A Strategy to End Poverty." Right? And this was published in The Nation magazine. So the core idea: create deliberate chaos in the welfare system by engaging mass enrollment of everyone technically eligible for benefits. Technically, right? Many of whom were not previously claiming them. This would overwhelm state and local welfare bureaucracies, cause fiscal crises and bankruptcies, and force the federal government to step in with a massive centralized solution, specifically a guaranteed annual income that will replace the existing welfare system and supposedly eliminate poverty. What do we see going on right now? Just saying. So 4 main steps: expose the failure of the current welfare system by overloading it. Hasn't it been overloaded in the past 4 years? I think so. Mobilize the poor and their allies, community organizers, activism groups to demand benefits in mass. Check that box. Cause budgetary and administrative crisis in cities and states. Wow, checking the boxes. Okay. Use the resulting political pressure to force Congress and the president to enact a federally funded guaranteed minimum income for all citizens. Has anybody heard about UBI? Universal basic income. That's been floated around a lot. Just saying. So the strategy was explicitly designed as a form of radical pressure politics, not gradual reform. Cloward and Piven were openly influenced by Saul Alinsky, style community organizing and believed that only a crisis of sufficient magnitude would break the existing system and open the door to structural change. In practice, some activists in the late 1960s, 1970s, especially the National Warfare Rights Organization, which Cloward and Piven advised, did pressure large scale welfare sign up campaigns, and New York City's welfare rolls and cost exploded, contributing to its 1975 fiscal crisis. Though historians debate how directly this followed the strategy versus other economic factors. Critics, especially on the political right, later interpreted the strategy more broadly, claiming it as a deliberate long term plan to overload and collapse multiple American systems: welfare, immigration, healthcare, voting, debt, etc. To bring about socialist transformation. Cloward and Piven themselves never expanded it beyond the original 1966 welfare focused proposal. So when I read this at first, I was like, wait a minute. Like, this is what's happening right now. Like, literally, this is what's happening right now. Like, every time I see this, I read it, I see Mandani. I see what, the past administration was trying to do. I see what Democrats are constantly, we need more people on welfare. What? We need more people working in independent to make this work. In my opinion, we're throwing money everywhere. Why don't we throw money back at the people who lost their businesses during COVID and give them their businesses back? Yeah, is it going to take some time for them to, build up their clientele again? But they had already had a successful clientele. They were doing okay. They might not have been doing like as well as they wanted to, but they were doing okay. Why aren't we doing that? Why isn't anybody talking about that part? But we're bringing in all these other big businesses and all these, the smaller businesses that lost their livelihood, the ones that were already doing well. They need the injection, not Walmart. They need the injection, not Amazon. Walmart and Amazon and Target, they're going to be fine. But these smaller businesses, again, that lost everything, they should be compensated and their businesses restored for the damage that the federal government caused it. Now, I don't see that as welfare. Why? Because they created jobs for people. And people, therefore, can work those jobs. They can take care of their families. They can buy a house. Do you see how this works? Right? But no, we want to just throw the money at Target and we want to make sure the banks are propped up. And it's very telling. Cloward and Piven is very, very telling. But we have checked all these boxes. And people are pushing for universal basic income. They are. A lot of people want to see it. It's very crazy. And so I wanted to get into some news here, especially this story, because Supreme Court is now allowing Texas to use the new congressional map, right? Remember the Texas individuals, they were making videos and they were running all over the country. They ran to Chicago. They were all over the place, like, help us. They're racist in Texas. It's like, dude, if they're so racist in Texas, like, why are you there? Like, move. I'm sorry. I can't with the complaining. If you don't like it, run for office and fix it. Stop it. Stop complaining. Stop whining. Get off the couch and do what you need to do. If you're going to sit on the couch and whine like I've put earphones on, come up with a solution or get out of the conversation. So Supreme Court allows Texas to use new 2026 congressional map. Okay. The Supreme Court on Thursday allowed Texas to implement a new congressional map ahead of the 2026 midterm election. The decision paused a lower court ruling that had blocked the map as a likely unconstitutional racial gerrymander in 4 of the 5 most changed districts. And in my opinion, it's interesting how the Democrats were like, "You guys are being racist." And I'm like, a lot of these districts you're talking about have majority they're minority people. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? No, just be honest. It's not favoring your party. They voted in a way that doesn't favor the Democratic Party. It doesn't. Stop using race as a crutch. I'm sorry. Now it's just being used as a crutch. No more, no more. We're not dealing in race anymore. What if that was a thing, you guys? We just go on a campaign. We're like, we're not dealing in race anymore. What are you talking about? Somebody brings up race. You're like, nope, not doing that. What else you got? How are we having this conversation now? Because you can't use race. People would probably like crash out insanely. We need to have space on it. Okay. So the details, the court issued a brief unsigned order without a record vote due to the case's time sensitive nature. The justices said the lower court erred by failing to presume legislative good faith and didn't require challengers to propose a race neutral alternative map. So all this whining they did, nothing came back as an alternative that was race neutral. So when the Democrats did come back, they did it based on race. Y'all are just not. Oh, I need you to do better. So Justices Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, and Neil Gorsuch wrote separately that the Texas map's primary motivation was partisan advantage rather than racial discrimination. And that's what I was just saying. I was like, come on, stop that. Justices Alina Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented, arguing the stay places many Texans into districts based on race, violating constitutional protections. The order could give Republicans up to 5 additional House seats in 2026. Here's my problem at the end of the day. First of all, it shouldn't be done. The next census we're supposed to be having should be in 2030. And that's really when districts should change based on, right, the number of people you have, because the number of people you have determines your district. But right now, we're dealing with, I don't want to call it overcrowding, but we have people here that are not here legally. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, she had actually brought this up and she wanted to pass legislation that stated if you are not an American citizen, if you are not naturalized, then your number of who you are does not get recorded in the census. It's kind of like, I hear where you're coming from, but that's kind of dangerous at the same time because we need to know who's here, right? So I think on the census, there should be a box checked where you state whether you're documented or undocumented. And see, I've worked a Census Bureau tabulation where you open up the mail and you make sure everything's filled out right and you calculate the numbers and all that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, okay, we get the box that checks that says you're undocumented. If those people are undocumented, they need to be researched, reviewed, either taken off the soil. More than likely, they need to be taken off soil, right? But they shouldn't be counted in the numbers to make changes in districts. That's all. Just saying. Now, for context, the ruling comes amid a broader national debate over partisan redistricting and Voting Rights Act compliance. In November, the Justice Department sued California to block its newly approved congressional map, which would shape Democratic control of the House in 2026. Texas currently has 38 seats in the House, 22 of which are controlled by the Republican Party. Texas's December 8th candidate filing deadline adds urgency to the case as uncertainty over the map affects who can run and where. And this would affect possibly Jasmine Crockett, right? Because I want to say when it was presented, it was like she would be kind of cut out of the district that she was living in. Now she can still run and live outside of the district, but it looks kind of weird. Just saying. So outlets on the left framed the ruling as a major political victory for President Trump. The Washington Post, that leans left bias, said Trump sparked the fight by pushing Texas Republicans to narrow its advantage in the state. It quoted a California law professor who said the decision is a green light for even more redistricting and a strong message to lower courts. The New York Post, that leans right, focused on Kagan's response, saying she was miffed at the decision to overrule the lower court and raged at how quick the decision was made. Roll Call Center wrote the order hinted the Supreme Court wouldn't partake in a rising wave of redistricting efforts that favored the state's dominant political party. Very interesting. Because whenever you're redistricting, why are you? Now, mainly it should be to reflect the voting that occurred in the past election. I would think, that's why you're redistricting. Things changed. Or you have more humans, people, and you may need to break up some districts so that there's, fair representation. So one person's like handling 500,000 people and another person's handling like 50,000. I'm just saying, like you gotta balance it out a little bit. So what do you guys think? It's a big deal, redistricting, and everybody always calls it racial. When the Democrats do it, I think the Republicans get more on the offensive in that they're just trying to steal elections and they're just, putting it in concentrated areas. So they always win these areas. But, when you look at Texas, I was like, it was red. It's amazing there's any Democrats in Texas. I'm just saying, at the state or federal level. It's very shocking to me because people wanted something different. But by the videos that I showed you guys here, 2026 is going to be a toss-up because you've got I want to say 47 members between the House and the Senate that are going to be leaving, and there's going to be some vacancies. Okay? So there's going to be some open seats, and this is where I'm hoping the Redemption Party, or we can finally get some candidates who can, garner the support in different states like Texas and California and run for these federal House seats to really start making a dent and making a difference in our, political representation as a society. Like I said, I've read Breathe Cloud and Piven. I read the Nazism and fascism. We are here. Those words they're old, but it's the application of them. And interestingly enough, how people, they call them on the far right, are actually libertarians, really. They have the liberalism. Some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. So with that, we're going to have our prayer. I didn't see anybody come up from open mic. So we're going to do our prayer, praying Thanksgiving, going into the weekend and cover, definitely God's protection. So God, thank you so much for bringing us here through the week to Prayer with Friday. We're just really praying for cover going into the weekend, that people can be safe. I know the weather is different in different parts of the country. We're into the winter months, so there's a lot of snow, a lot of rain. And Father, also just being thankful for everything that you've given us, that you've brought us here to another year. I'm so grateful for everybody that's on the line, praying for them and their family and friends, Father, and also praying for loved ones who may be in the hospital. My dad's in the hospital, and just praying for his speedy recovery, and for anybody else out there who has a relative having health issues at this time. So again, we're so grateful for everything you're doing for us, God, and everything that you're going to do. Father, we are hopeful, and we know that you are going to save the people of this country. I know it looks dark and it looks bleak, God, but I just have hope, Father, that you are going to carry us through these dark times. It's in Jesus' name we pray and give thanks. Amen. So thank you guys again for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. We will be back on Monday with our Recap Monday. So again, remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.